The Zarkonian warship emerged from hyperspace like a predator stalking its prey. Its crystalline hull captured and reflected the light of distant stars, creating an intimidating display of power that had cowed countless species across the galaxy. Captain Vexthor stood on the command deck, his scaled skin shimming with barely contained excitement as he observed the small human research vessel through the ship's advanced targeting systems. Primitives, he chittered to his bridge crew, mandibles clicking in amusement. Look at their hull composition. They're barely out of their stellar cradle. The research vessel, the ESS Curiosity, was conducting routine geological surveys of an asteroid belt in what humans called the Ta City system. It was far from Earth, but still within what humanity considered its sovereign space. Not that the Zarkonians cared about such claims from lesser species. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from their vessel. They appear to be using some form of primitive fusion drive." Vexthor's inner eyelids blinked in dismissal. The Zarkonian Empire had mastered fusion technology millennia ago. Now they powered their ships with quantum singularities and harvested energy from dying stars. This human vessel was nothing more than an irritating reminder that the galaxy still harbored developing species that needed to learn their place. "Open communications," Vexthor ordered. "Let's see how they respond to their betters." The human captain's face appeared on the main view screen. She was older for her species, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of experience. Captain Sarah Chen had spent 30 years in space, but this was her first encounter with an alien vessel. "This is Captain Chen of the Earth science ship Curiosity. We're conducting peaceful research in accordance with galactic law. Please state your intentions." Vexthor's mandibles twitched in amusement. "Your presence offends the Zarkonian Empire. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Your technology, primitive as it is, will be analyzed, and your crew will serve as test subjects for our biological research division." Chen's expression didn't change, but her voice carried steel when she responded. "We are a civilian research vessel in recognized human space. Any aggressive action against us will be considered an act of war against Earth and her colonies." The bridge crew burst into clicking laughter. War with humans. The very idea was absurd. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago. They had no standing in the galactic community, no significant military force, and their technology was centuries behind the major powers. "You mistake your position, human," Vexthor said. "We are not asking permission. We are informing you of what will happen. The Zarkonian Empire does not negotiate with lesser species." Chen's response was not what he expected. She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. "Then let the record show that you were warned." She cut the transmission. Vexthor didn't hesitate. "Target their engines. Disable them. But try to keep the hull intact. Our scientists will want to study their primitive technology." The Zarkonian warship's main weapon system powered up, its crystalline hull channeling energy into a focused beam that could slice through battleship armor. Against the human vessel's basic shields, it would be instantaneous. The beam lanced out, striking the Curiosity's hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the research vessel exploded with a force that briefly rivaled a small star. The shockwave hit the Zarkonian ship before they could raise their shields, overloading systems and sending crew members flying across the bridge. When Vexthor regained his footing, he stared in disbelief at the debris field where the human ship had been. "Impossible," he whispered. "Their power readings, they were minimal." His science officer was already analyzing the data. "Sir, the explosion, it wasn't their engines. The humans had loaded their ship with some form of antimatter device. They triggered it deliberately when we attacked." Vexthor felt his blood run cold. Who were these humans? What kind of species would sacrifice an entire research crew just to damage an enemy vessel? Before he could process this, his communications officer called out in alarm. "Sir, we're detecting multiple quantum space distortions. Something's coming through." The space around them began to tear open as ships emerged from what the humans called slip space, vessels unlike anything in Zarkonian records. They were darker than space itself, their hulls seeming to bend light around them, making them difficult to focus on directly. A transmission cut through their communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. The voice was calm, measured, and terrifying in its certainty. "This is Admiral Helena Vasquez of the Earth Defense Force. You have attacked and destroyed a civilian research vessel in sovereign human space. We have recorded your actions and your intentions. The Zarkonian Empire has committed an act of war against humanity. Your response to this message is irrelevant. We simply wanted you to know why this is happening." Vexthor watched in horror as the human ships opened fire, their weapons bypassing his vessel's shields as if they didn't exist. In his last moments, he realized the terrible truth. They had never been dealing with primitives. They had been dealing with a species that had mastered the art of appearing weak while hiding its true strength. The destruction of the Zarkonian warship would echo across the galaxy, serving as humanity's announcement to the galactic community. The time of hiding was over. They had hoped to develop in peace, to join the galactic community gradually and diplomatically. But the Zarkonians had forced their hand. As news of the incident spread, other species would soon learn that humanity had spent the last century preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation. Every research vessel was armed with weapon systems that appeared non-existent until fired. Every primitive fusion drive contained technology that could tear holes in space-time. Every human ship carried the means of its own destruction, ensuring that even in death, they could strike back at their attackers. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had spent so long appearing weak, and why that appearance had been humanity's greatest deception. In the aftermath, as reports reached Earth, the Human Defense Council convened an emergency session. The room was silent as they reviewed the footage from the Curiosity's final moments. Captain Chen and her crew had followed the protocol perfectly, appearing harmless until the last possible moment, ensuring the enemy would underestimate them, and then striking back with devastating force. "And so it begins," Council President Alexander Martinez said quietly. "We knew this day would come. We've spent a century preparing for it." She looked around the table at the other council members. "Initiate Operation Revelation. It's time to show the galaxy who we really are." Across Earth and its colonies, hidden shipyards began to power up. Stealth fields dropped, revealing fleets of advanced warships. Research stations transformed into military installations. The facade of a primitive species struggling to find its place in the galaxy fell away, revealing a civilization that had been quietly preparing for war since the day they first looked up at the stars and realized they might not be alone. Humanity had hoped for peace, but they had prepared for war. Now, the galaxy would learn why. Deep beneath the surface of Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, the true extent of humanity's deception became clear. What appeared to the galaxy as a small research outpost studying primitive microbial life was, in reality, one of Earth's largest military installations. General Marcus Zhang stood at the Central Command Center, watching as holographic displays showed the activation of similar facilities across the solar system and beyond. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying across the vast chamber where hundreds of operators monitored Earth's hidden defense network. "All stealth systems are functioning at optimal levels, sir," Colonel Diana Rivera responded, her hands dancing across the quantum interface. "The Zarkonians still believe they destroyed a simple research vessel. They have no idea about the fleet we've positioned behind Saturn's rings." Zhang nodded, his expression grim. For over a century, humanity had maintained an elaborate masquerade. Every public display of their technology was carefully crafted to appear decades, if not centuries, behind their actual capabilities. Every diplomatic interaction was designed to project weakness and technological inferiority. It had been a dangerous game, but a necessary one. "Show me the Artemis array," he ordered. The holographic display shifted, revealing a massive structure hidden within the asteroid belt. To the rest of the galaxy, it appeared as nothing more than a collection of mining operations. In reality, it was the most advanced weapons platform ever created by human hands. The Zarkonians made their choice, Zhang said quietly. Initiate Protocol Omega. It's time to wake the sleepers. Throughout the solar system, structures that had appeared dormant for decades began to stir. Asteroid mining facilities transformed into battle stations. Research platforms revealed weapons systems that could tear holes in spacetime. What appeared to be civilian shipping lanes were actually carefully plotted military hyperspace corridors. In a secure facility on Mars, Dr. Yuki Tanaka reviewed the final diagnostics of Project Phoenix. The massive chamber housed row upon row of what appeared to be simple storage containers. Each one contained a quantum-locked piece of technology that would revolutionize warfare. They thought our ships were powered by fusion drives, she said to her assistant, a slight smile playing across her face. They never questioned why we wouldn't have moved beyond such primitive technology. They never wondered if perhaps we wanted them to think that. The assistant, Dr. James Chen, nodded as he examined the readouts. The quantum phase drives are ready. Once activated, our ships will be able to move through space in ways the Zarkonians thought impossible. Throughout human space, similar revelations were taking place. The facades were dropping, revealing the true face of human military might. Space stations that appeared to be basic habitats transformed into fortress worlds. Civilian ships revealed weapon systems that had been hidden behind quantum camouflage. On the lunar surface, Admiral Sarah O'Connor stood in the Real Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching as reports flooded in from across human space. The facility, hidden beneath what appeared to be an obsolete mining operation, was the nerve center of humanity's military operations. The Zarkonians have already sent word to their fleet, her tactical officer reported. They're mobilizing for what they think will be an easy conquest. O'Connor's lips curved into a cold smile. Let them come. Every move they make is being tracked by sensors they don't know exist. Every communication they send is being intercepted by quantum receivers they think are centuries beyond our capability. In the depths of space, the true extent of humanity's preparation became apparent. What appeared to be random debris fields were actually carefully positioned sensor arrays. Seemingly abandoned space stations were automated repair and resupply bases. Every piece of human infrastructure had been designed with multiple purposes, each layer of technology carefully hidden behind a facade of primitiveness. The Zarkonian Empire was about to learn that they hadn't struck a vulnerable species. They had awakened a sleeping giant, a giant that had spent a century preparing for this very moment. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, the Earth Defense Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every human colony and installation gathered to coordinate the response to the Zarkonian aggression. Council President Martinez stood at the podium, her voice carrying across the chamber. For a century, we have hidden our true strength. We have endured the condescension of species who thought us primitive. We have weathered their insults and their dismissal, but we have not been idle. The assembled leaders nodded grimly. Every one of them had played a part in maintaining humanity's deception. Every colony, every installation, every ship had been part of an elaborate strategy designed to ensure that when humanity finally revealed its true capabilities, it would be at a time and place of their choosing. The Zarkonians believe they are dealing with a species barely capable of interstellar travel, Martinez continued. They expect to find colonies defended by basic shields and fusion-powered ships. Instead, they will face the full might of a civilization that has spent a century preparing for war while presenting the face of peace. In orbital shipyards across human space, vessels that had appeared to be simple freighters and research ships began to transform. Quantum camouflage fields dropped, revealing ships of war unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Their hulls were composed of materials that could adapt and repair themselves. Their weapon systems operated on principles that the Zarkonians would think impossible. Deep within the Oort cloud, humanity's most closely guarded secret stirred to life. Project Prometheus, a fleet of ships so advanced that even most humans didn't know they existed, began to power up. These vessels represented the pinnacle of human military technology, ships that could manipulate space-time itself as a weapon. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their ships. It was their patience, their willingness to endure a century of perceived weakness to ensure that when they finally showed their true strength, victory would be assured. As the Zarkonian fleet assembled for what they thought would be an easy conquest, humanity's hidden sensors watched and waited. Every move was monitored, every communication intercepted, every strategy analyzed. The trap was set, and the Zarkonians were walking right into it. In the Europa Command Center, General Zhang received the final confirmation. All systems were ready. All forces were in position. A century of preparation was about to bear fruit. "Send the signal," he ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy who we really are." Across human space, the message was received. The time for hiding was over. The time for revelation had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Zarkonian battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation, 500 vessels strong, led by Grand Admiral Ixis aboard the dreadnought Empire's Glory. It was a force that had subjugated dozens of civilizations. The fleet's crystalline hulls caught the light of Earth's sun, creating a deadly beautiful display that would normally strike terror into the hearts of their opponents. But there was no terror in the Sol system, only silence. No defensive fleet, Ixis observed, his compound eyes scanning the tactical displays. Not even a planetary shield grid. These humans truly are primitives. His tactical officer, however, seemed less certain. "Sir, something feels wrong. Our long-range scans show only civilian vessels fleeing the system. No military response at all." Ixis chittered in amusement. "Because they have no real military. Their most advanced ships are barely more than impulse-driven tubes with fusion cores." He gestured toward Earth, a blue jewel hanging in space. "Begin the attack pattern. Show these primitives the price of defiance." The Zarkonian fleet moved forward, spreading out in their practiced formation. Their sensors showed nothing but civilian traffic and obsolete defense satellites. It would be over quickly. Then everything changed. It started with the satellites. What had appeared as primitive communication relays suddenly shifted, quantum camouflage falling away to reveal advanced weapon platforms. Before the Zarkonian fleet could react, space itself seemed to twist. Multiple spatial anomalies detected. The tactical officer screamed. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. From behind Earth's moon, from within the asteroid belt, from seemingly empty space itself, humanity's true fleet emerged. Their ships were nothing like the primitive vessels the galaxy knew. These were predators, their hulls darker than space itself, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Admiral Helena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the EDF Nemesis, humanity's most advanced warship. "All ships, execute Operation Revelation. Show them what humanity can really do." The human fleet moved with impossible precision. Ships phased through space in ways the Zarkonians had thought violated the laws of physics. Weapon systems activated that shouldn't have existed for centuries. Impossible. Ixis roared as the first wave of attacks struck his fleet. The humans weren't using simple energy weapons or kinetic strikes. Their weapons were tearing holes in reality itself, creating localized space-time distortions that ripped Zarkonian ships apart at the quantum level. From her command center on Europa, Dr. Tanaka monitored the effectiveness of humanity's weapon systems. "The quantum phase cannons are performing above expectations," she reported to General Zhang. "The Zarkonians have no defense against weapons they didn't know could exist." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships seemed to ignore the normal rules of space combat. They appeared in multiple places simultaneously, their quantum drives allowing them to exist in probabilistic states until the moment of attack. Their shields didn't just deflect energy. They'd redirected it, turning the Zarkonians' own weapons against them. Fall back, Ixus ordered, watching in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by forces he couldn't comprehend. Full retreat. Get us out of this system. But retreat wasn't as simple as they expected. The humans had transformed the very fabric of space around the solar system. Hyperspace corridors that had been stable for millennia suddenly twisted in impossible ways. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, mandibles trembling, "we can't plot a safe course out. They've done something to hyperspace itself." In the Europa Command Center, General John watched the battle unfold. "Activate the Prometheus array," he ordered. "Show them the full extent of our capabilities." Throughout the solar system, massive structures that had been hidden in plain sight revealed themselves. The Prometheus array, a network of space-time manipulation devices that humanity had spent decades constructing while the galaxy thought they were building simple defense platforms. The array activated, and the space around the Zarkonian fleet began to change. Time itself seemed to flow differently in different regions, trapping enemy ships in temporal eddies where seconds stretched into hours while minutes compressed into microseconds around them. Admiral Vasquez's voice carried across all frequencies, a message not just to the Zarkonians, but to the entire galaxy. "You thought us primitive because we chose not to show our hand. You mistook patience for weakness, preparation for hesitation. That mistake ends today." The Zarkonian fleet, once proud and unstoppable, was being systematically dismantled. Ships that managed to avoid the quantum weapons found themselves trapped in temporal distortions. Those that escaped the time effects were picked apart by weapons that seemed to strike from multiple dimensions simultaneously. On the Empire's glory, Grand Admiral Ixus watched his mighty fleet crumble before forces he couldn't even begin to understand. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How could they have hidden this level of technology? The answer came from his science officer, who had been analyzing the data streams. "Sir, they didn't just hide their technology. They hid their entire technological development. Every piece of primitive technology we observed was a carefully crafted deception. They wanted us to underestimate them." In Geneva, the Earth Defense Council watched as their century of preparation paid off. President Martinez addressed the assembled leaders. "Today, we show the galaxy that humanity will no longer tolerate being treated as a lesser species. Today, we demonstrate that patience is not weakness, and preparation is not fear." The battle continued, but it was no longer a battle. It was a demonstration. Every weapon system, every tactical maneuver, every strategic deployment had been planned and practiced for decades. The Zarkonians weren't just being defeated, they were being educated in the folly of underestimating humanity. Admiral Vasquez observed the remaining Zarkonian ships, now trapped and powerless. "Signal the Empire's glory," she commanded. "It's time to deliver our terms." The message was sent, not just to the Zarkonians, but broadcast across all known communication channels in the galaxy. "This is humanity's formal notice to the galactic community. We are not primitive. We are not weak. We have spent a century preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come but ready if it did. The choice is now yours. Accept us as equals, or learn firsthand why we chose to hide our true strength for so long." In the debris field that had once been the pride of the Zarkonian fleet, Grand Admiral Ixus received the message. Looking at the impossible ships that surrounded his vessel, at the weapons that defied his understanding of physics, at the complete and total superiority of the species he had dismissed as primitive, he made the only choice he could. He surrendered. The galaxy would never be the same. The species that everyone had dismissed as barely worth noting had revealed itself to be a technological and military power unlike anything they had seen before. And this was just the beginning. Humanity had finally shown its true face to the galaxy. The time for hiding was over. The era of revelation had begun. News of the Zarkonian fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, representatives from 100 species gathered in emergency session, their voices a cacophony of fear and disbelief. The humans, The supposedly primitive humans had not only defeated the Zarkonian Empire's premier fleet, but had done so with technology that shouldn't have existed. High Counselor Vin of the Arcturian Collective, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, called the session to order. "We must address what has happened in the Sol system," they announced, their crystalline form pulsing with concerned light. "Our fundamental understanding of humanity has been proven incomplete." In the chamber center, a holographic representation showed the battle's aftermath. The Zarkonian fleet's wreckage hung in space, surrounded by human vessels that seemed to defy the known laws of physics. Meanwhile, humanity was on the move. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the EDF Nemesis, reviewing tactical displays of Zarkonian space. "All strike groups report ready," her XO announced. "Operation Righteous Response is go." Across human space, fleets that had remained hidden for decades emerged from their quantum camouflage. Ships that could bend space-time to their will, weapons that could reach across dimensions, defensive systems that made their vessels nearly invulnerable. Humanity's full military might was finally revealed. The Zarkonian Empire, which had dismissed Earth as an insignificant backwater, suddenly found itself facing an enemy that had spent a century preparing for this exact moment. Human forces struck with surgical precision, their attacks coordinated with an efficiency that terrified their opponents. In the Zarkonian capital of Krithax Prime, Supreme Overlord Zix watched in horror as reports flooded in. Human ships were appearing simultaneously in dozens of systems, striking critical military installations with weapons that his scientists couldn't even explain, much less defend against. "How did we not see this?" he demanded of his advisors. "How did we miss such advanced technology?" His chief intelligence officer, still reeling from the revelations, displayed a series of recordings. "They showed us exactly what we expected to see. Every piece of technology they displayed publicly was carefully crafted to appear primitive, even their civilian vessels." The officer paused, mandibles clicking in agitation. "We're now discovering that what we thought were simple trading ships have been mapping our defense networks for decades. Every human vessel that entered our space was gathering intelligence, analyzing our capabilities, finding our weaknesses." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, more disturbing news arrived. The Nextali, a species known for their advanced sensor technology, shared their analysis. The humans didn't just hide their military capabilities, their representative explained, tentacles writhing in agitation. "They've been operating quantum observation posts throughout the galaxy, disguised as debris or natural phenomena. They've been watching all of us, learning our strengths and weaknesses, while we dismissed them as barely worth noting." The human offensive continued with ruthless efficiency. Every strike was precisely calculated, every target carefully chosen. They weren't just winning battles, they were systematically dismantling the Zarkonian Empire's ability to wage war. Dr. Tanaka, monitoring the campaign from Europa Command, smiled as she reviewed the effectiveness reports. "The quantum phase technology is performing beyond expectations," she reported to General Zhang. "The Zarkonians still haven't figured out how to detect our ships before they strike." The war that the Zarkonians had started, thinking they were dealing with an easy target, had become their nightmare. Human forces moved through their defense networks like ghosts, striking with weapons that ignored shields, bypassed armor, and rendered their most advanced defensive systems useless. In the Galactic Council, the implications were becoming clear. High Counselor Vin addressed the assembly again. "We must face an uncomfortable truth. While we viewed humanity as a young, primitive species, they were studying us, preparing for the day when someone would make the mistake of underestimating them. The Zarkonians made that mistake, and now we are witnessing the consequences." The human advance was methodical and unstoppable. Systems that had been under Zarkonian control for millennia fell in hours. The Empire's mighty fleets found themselves facing an enemy that could predict their every move, counter their every strategy, and strike from vectors they thought impossible. President Martinez addressed the Earth Defense Council as reports of victory after victory came in. "We never wanted this war," she said solemnly. "We spent a century hiding our true capabilities, hoping we would never need to use them. The Zarkonians mistook our restraint for weakness. Now they, and the galaxy, will understand why we chose to wait, to prepare, to perfect our technology before revealing it." In desperate response, the Zarkonian Empire attempted to rally its allies. But the galaxy had watched the humans demolish one of the most powerful military forces in known space. No one was eager to face an enemy that could bend reality itself as a weapon. Admiral Vasquez received the reports of Zarkonian allies declining to intervene with grim satisfaction. "They're learning," she noted to her staff. "They're finally beginning to understand that humanity's apparent weakness was a choice, not a limitation." The Galactic Council found itself facing a new reality. The species they had dismissed as primitive now wielded technology that surpassed their own. Humanity had revealed itself to be not just advanced, but revolutionary in its technological achievements. High Counselor Vin summarized the situation to the assembled representatives. "We must accept that we fundamentally misunderstood humanity. They didn't develop their technology in the way we expected because they were never trying to impress us or gain our approval. They were preparing for this, the moment when someone would make the mistake of treating them as inferior." As the human fleets continued their advance, the Zarkonian Empire faced a choice: unconditional surrender or complete destruction. Their mighty empire, built over millennia of conquest and dominion, was being systematically dismantled by a species they had thought barely worth their notice. Supreme Overlord Zix, watching his empire crumble before the human onslaught, finally understood the magnitude of his species' mistake. They hadn't attacked a primitive civilization. They had provoked a sleeping giant that had spent a century ensuring that when it finally showed its strength, victory would be absolute. The galaxy was learning a lesson written in the ruins of Zarkonian power. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their advanced technology or their superior tactics. It was their patience, their willingness to endure being underestimated until the perfect moment to reveal their true strength. The tables hadn't just turned, they had been completely rewritten, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year after the Zarkonian surrender, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had been redesigned, and at its center stood a new seat, one reserved for humanity's representative. But unlike the ornate thrones of other species, the human chair was simple, utilitarian, a reminder of the deception they had maintained for so long. Ambassador Sarah Chen, the same Captain Chen who had commanded the destroyed research vessel that sparked the war, took her place among the galaxy's most powerful representatives. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The commander of a supposedly primitive vessel now stood as the voice of one of the most technologically advanced civilizations known to exist. "The terms of the Zarkonian surrender have been fully implemented," Chen announced to the assembled council. "Their military has been disbanded, their aggressive expansion ended." However, she paused, looking around the chamber. "Humanity has no desire for conquest or domination. We seek only to ensure that no species faces the threat of extinction at the hands of another." The chamber was silent. The galaxy had watched as humanity dismantled the Zarkonian Empire with terrifying efficiency, using technology that most species hadn't thought possible. Now those same humans were speaking of peace. In Earth orbit, the newest addition to humanity's defenses hung like a silver web against the stars. The Sentinel Array, as it was called, represented the public face of human technology, a defensive network that could detect and prevent unauthorized military movements anywhere in the galaxy. Admiral Vasquez, now Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, stood in the array's control center with Dr. Tanaka. "Show me the latest readings," she requested. The holographic display came alive, showing real-time data from across thousands of light years. Every ship movement, every power signature, every quantum fluctuation was monitored and analyzed. But unlike the hidden sensors of the past, this system was visible to all, a clear statement that humanity would no longer hide its capabilities. The galaxy is still adjusting, Dr. Tanaka noted, studying the data. Some species are accelerating their research, trying to catch up to our level of technology. Others are reaching out for diplomatic ties, hoping to learn from us. Vask has nodded, and some are still searching for our weaknesses, unable to believe that we could have advanced so far in secret. In the ruins of the former Zarkonian capital, now a joint scientific research center, human and alien scientists worked together. The facility represented humanity's new approach, sharing some of their advances while maintaining their edge in critical areas. General Zhang, overseeing the transition, met with representatives from various species. "We understand your curiosity about our technology," he told them. "But understand this. What we've revealed is only what we choose to share. We maintained our deception for a century not out of fear, but out of wisdom." On Earth, the Defense Council had been reformed into the Galactic Relations Committee. President Martinez, addressing the first joint session with alien representatives, laid out humanity's vision for the future. "We hid our strength not because we were afraid, but because we understood something fundamental about power," she explained. "True strength lies not in displaying your capabilities, but in knowing when to reveal them. We chose peace until peace was no longer an option." The galaxy was learning to adapt to this new paradigm. The humans, once dismissed as primitives, were now recognized as masters of deception and technological innovation. Their ships patrolled trade routes, their sensors monitored spatial anomalies, and their diplomatic corps worked to forge new alliances. In the Arcturian Collective, High Counselor Vin presented their findings to their people. "The humans have taught us an invaluable lesson. We assumed that technological advancement would follow a predictable pattern, that it would be displayed and celebrated. We never considered that an entire civilization might choose to hide its progress, might deliberately appear weak while developing capabilities beyond our understanding." The former Zarkonian territories were being transformed. Where once stood weapons facilities and military bases, now research centers and diplomatic outposts flourished. The species that had lived under Zarkonian oppression were free to develop their own paths forward, with humanity serving not as conquerors but as guardians against future aggression. In the Europa Command Center, now a hub for galactic cooperation, Dr. Chen worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies. "We kept our advances secret not out of malice," he explained to his colleagues, "but because we knew that true progress requires wisdom as well as knowledge." The quantum observation posts that had once hidden humanity's surveillance of the galaxy were now openly acknowledged, transformed into a network for scientific research and early warning against natural disasters. The technology that had been developed for war was being repurposed for peace. Admiral O'Connor, speaking to a graduating class at the newly established Galactic Defense Academy, summarized humanity's new role. "We proved we could win a war. Now we must prove we can maintain peace. Our technology gives us power, but our choices will determine our legacy." As the first year of the new era drew to a close, humanity had established itself not just as a military power, but as a stabilizing force in the galaxy. Their ships no longer hid their capabilities. Their stations no longer masqueraded as primitive outposts. Instead, they stood as testament to what could be achieved through patience, preparation, and purposeful restraint. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Chen concluded her address. "Let the galaxy remember this not as the time when humanity showed its strength, but as the moment when we all began to understand that true power lies not in domination, but in the wisdom to know when and how to use our capabilities. We hid our strength for a century, hoping we would never need to reveal it. Now that we have, we choose to use it not for conquest, but for protection. Not for dominion, but for defense. Not for war, but for peace." The galaxy had entered a new age. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive had revealed itself to be not just advanced, but wise. And in doing so, they had changed the course of galactic history not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that appearances can be deceiving, and that true strength lies not in what you show, but in what you choose to hide until the right moment. The dawn of humanity's revealed age had begun, and with it, a new understanding of power, progress, and the true meaning of civilization.